There is a silence that follows every collapse, a stillness that arrives after pretending for too long. You sit there, surrounded by everything you built to look whole, the job, the mask, the smile, and yet, somewhere beneath the calm surface, something inside whispers, "I am not okay." Most people never answer that whisper. They drown it in noise, success, or the endless scroll of distraction. Because to listen to it, truly listen, is to admit that the life they are living is not entirely real. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And he was right. We live in a world of polished mirrors, but few dare to look. We filter our pain into perfection. We say we're fine when our hearts are fractured. We pretend our confidence is strength, when it's often fear in disguise. We seek healing, but only the kind that doesn't require change. Yet here lies the paradox. You can't heal what you keep pretending isn't broken. The shadow, Jung's name for the unseen self, is not evil, nor is it your enemy. It's the collection of everything you've rejected. Your anger, envy, insecurity, shame. It's the child who was told to stay quiet. The adult who learned that feeling too deeply was weakness. It's all the emotions you buried just to be accepted. And though you may bury them in silence, they do not die. They wait. They whisper through fatigue, through failed relationships, through the quiet moments when the world stops moving and you can finally hear yourself again. The truth is, your shadow is not what ruins you. Your avoidance of it is. There's a wound inside each of us that asks to be seen, not solved. When you pretend it's not there, it festers, turning into self-sabotage, anxiety, and endless searching. But when you face it, when you finally allow the darkness to speak, something extraordinary begins. You begin to see that the pain you carry is not a punishment. It's a compass. It points toward what was lost, what was denied, what still needs love. And that's where healing begins. Not in escape, but in encounter. Not in running from what's broken, but in kneeling before it. Because the moment you stop pretending, the soul starts to breathe again. This is the beginning of awakening, the quiet courage to look inward and finally see yourself whole and unedited. There is a certain kind of exhaustion that no amount of sleep can fix. It's the fatigue of holding up a version of yourself that isn't true, of pretending that you've moved on when the truth still aches quietly beneath your ribs, of smiling through pain because you've been taught that vulnerability is weakness and silence is strength. But repression is not strength, it is self-abandonment. And every time you say, "I'm fine," when you're not, a small part of you disappears into the dark. We live in a culture obsessed with light. Be positive. Think happy thoughts. Focus on gratitude. But forced positivity is often just fear wearing perfume. We fear the dark emotions, sadness, grief, anger, because they remind us we're not in control. They remind us we're human. Carl Jung Philosophy teaches that whatever we refuse to confront controls us. Whatever we repress rules from the shadows. And so, while we chase light, the shadow grows larger behind us, unseen but powerful. The anger we deny becomes bitterness. The sadness we bury becomes depression. The fear we suppress becomes the quiet panic we can't explain. Every unacknowledged emotion has its own gravity. You feel it in the weight behind your smile, in the conversations where you laugh too loudly, in the way you stay busy, as if movement itself could outrun memory. You tell yourself that if you just achieve more, love more, distract more, it will go away. But denial is a cruel architect. It builds beautiful prisons. We become trapped in our own reflection, looking fine on the surface, while beneath the foundations crack. And sometimes the only way life can wake us is by breaking us. A loss, a betrayal, a collapse that strips away everything we thought made us whole. It is then, when there's nothing left to protect, that the truth finally begins to whisper. You start to see that all along, your pain wasn't your enemy. It was your teacher. It was the part of you that refused to die quietly. But this realization doesn't come gently. It comes with tears, with confusion, with nights when you question everything you thought you were. This is the struggle, the long war between the mask and the mirror. The mask says, "You're fine, you're strong, keep going." The mirror says, "No, look closer, something's breaking." And if you listen carefully, you can hear your soul beneath the noise, whispering, "Stop pretending, I need you." This is the moment of fracture, the crack where light will one day enter. The first step toward healing is not courage, it is honesty. And honesty is brutal. It asks you to admit what you've been denying, that you are not who you thought you had to be, that beneath your strength lives a storm, one you've avoided for years. But that storm, it's not chaos, it's purification, because only when you stand in the rain of your truth can you finally wash away the illusion. And in that cleansing, painful clarity, you will begin to see what Jung meant, that the shadow is not the darkness within you, it is the light you buried there. And when you finally stop running, when you dare to turn and face that darkness, what you find staring back is not a monster. It's you, the one you left behind, the one waiting to be whole again. There comes a moment in every honest life when the pain no longer asks to be silenced. It demands to be understood. That moment is not comfortable. It's not spiritual ecstasy or cinematic enlightenment. It's a quiet breakdown, a whisper that becomes a roar. I can't keep living like this. It's there, in the ruins of all your coping mechanisms, that truth begins to reveal itself. Carl Jung Philosophy teaches that the shadow is not an enemy to be destroyed, but the missing half of the self that must be reclaimed. The light we strive to project is only half the story. The darkness we repress completes it. You are not one thing or another. You are both. And it is in that paradox that the soul becomes whole. Think of the shadow as a mirror buried underground. Everything you've thrown away, every emotion, every impulse you label bad, reflects back from its surface, unseen. And the irony is, what you run from most holds the very power you're searching for. Your anger hides your boundaries. Your envy reveals your unfulfilled potential. Your fear guards your intuition. Your sadness carries your capacity for love. You are not broken because you have darkness. You suffer because you've mistaken it for something shameful. Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. To become whole, you must walk into the cave you fear the most, not to fight the monster, but to find the lost child." The shadow does not seek dominance. It seeks dialogue. It wants to be acknowledged, not glorified. Because healing is not the destruction of the dark, it's its integration. Imagine standing before a mirror, fractured into 100 pieces. You could spend your life polishing one shard, the version of yourself you show to the world, and still never see the whole picture. But when you gather the pieces, painful as it is, you begin to see your reflection again. Complete, imperfect, real. This is what it means to heal. Not to erase your pain, but to integrate it. Not to transcend your humanity, but to embrace it. The world will tell you to let go of the past, but the past does not disappear when ignored. It sinks deeper. And from that depth, it influences every decision, every relationship, every silent judgment you make. True healing does not mean forgetting. It means remembering differently. It means revisiting the wounds, not to relieve them, but to release the self that was trapped inside them. In Jung's philosophy, the unconscious is not the enemy of reason. It is its foundation. Without awareness of what lives beneath, we become slaves to it. Our unlived lives, the versions of ourselves we denied, haunt us through projection. We see in others what we cannot accept in ourselves. We call someone arrogant because we fear our own potential. We call someone weak because we despise our own vulnerability. We call someone broken because we haven't forgiven our own cracks. And so, the world becomes our mirror, showing us, again and again, the parts we've refused to see. The revelation is this: everything that triggers you, threatens you, or disturbs you is trying to show you something about yourself. Your shadow is not chasing you to hurt you, it's trying to bring you home. Healing begins when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me about myself?" When you stop performing and start listening. When you stop seeking light and start learning from darkness. Because the truth is, every soul must descend before it ascends. Every heart must break before it opens. Every self must die, not in body, but in illusion, before it can be reborn as whole. Carl Jung. Philosophy is not a theory of comfort. It is a philosophy of wholeness. It does not promise happiness, it offers truth. And truth once seen cannot be unseen. You will realize that what you thought was broken was never broken at all. It was simply waiting for you to return, to stop pretending, to stop running, and to finally remember what it feels like to be one. The darkness is not against you. It's your reflection, waiting for reconciliation. And when you dare to meet its eyes, the night itself begins to shine. There is a moment, subtle but irreversible, when awareness becomes choice, when you no longer see your pain as punishment, but as guidance. When the shadow is no longer a monster in the corner, it becomes a map. This is the beginning of transformation. Carl Jung Philosophy reminds us that to integrate the shadow is not to become perfect, but to become real. You do not conquer your darkness, you befriend it. You listen to what it's been trying to tell you through every heartbreak, every failure, every sleepless night. Healing begins the moment you stop seeking freedom from pain and start seeking freedom through it. The shadow is a language, emotional truth written in symbols and sensations. When you feel envy, it is not evil. It is the voice of potential calling you to evolve. When you feel anger, it's not wickedness. It's a boundary that was crossed. When you feel sadness, it's not weakness. It's love that has nowhere to go. Most people reject these emotions because they fear what they mean. But awareness turns fear into understanding. Understanding turns resistance into peace. The transformation begins when you ask, quietly but courageously, what is this feeling trying to show me about myself? That question, asked often enough, rewires the soul. It turns pain into teacher, memory into medicine, and darkness into direction. In your relationships, this integration changes everything. Instead of blaming others for triggering you, you start to recognize the reflection. You see how people don't hurt you. They reveal where you're still unhealed. The angry partner reveals your fear of rejection. The distant friend mirrors your own avoidance of intimacy. The critic awakens your hidden desire to be seen. Every interaction becomes a mirror, and every mirror becomes an opportunity to reclaim a forgotten part of yourself. This is the quiet revolution of self-awareness. Jung wrote that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But when you bring light to your darkness, you reclaim your destiny. You are no longer driven by unseen wounds. You begin to choose consciously, not from fear, but from truth. Even in solitude, this practice transforms you. When you are alone, you no longer feel lonely. You begin to see solitude as a sacred space, a temple where you can hear your own soul again. In that silence, you find what no external validation can give, a sense of inner belonging. To integrate the shadow is to stop splitting yourself in two. It's to live without pretending. It's to speak without disguise. It's to forgive yourself not because you are innocent, but because you are human. Carl Jung Philosophy teaches that individuation, the process of becoming whole, is the highest task of life. It demands humility because it asks you to admit you are not yet whole. It demands courage because it asks you to love what you once feared. It demands compassion because it asks you to understand that everyone is at war with their own unseen self. When you walk this path, you begin to see beauty in imperfection. You begin to understand that authenticity is not about always being calm or wise. It's about being truthful, and truth is often messy. But messiness is honest, and honesty heals. Transformation is not a single moment of awakening. It is a lifelong dialogue with the self. You fall, you rise, you forget, you remember. You learn to hold your darkness without shame, and in doing so, you learn to hold the world with compassion. The integrated soul does not seek power over others. It radiates power from within. It does not chase light, it becomes it. Because the person who has faced their shadow fears nothing. They have met their demons and found that they were never demons at all, only exiled angels waiting to return home. And so, you begin to walk differently, not lighter but deeper, not unscarred but whole. For the first time, your reflection no longer frightens you, because now you see you were never broken, you were just becoming real. There comes a silence after the storm, not empty but full. The kind of silence that doesn't ask for words, only presence. You sit there, not needing to fix, to justify, to prove. You simply breathe, and for the first time, it feels enough. This is what healing actually looks like. Not fireworks, not enlightenment, just a quiet return to yourself. Carl Jung. Philosophy reminds us that wholeness is not the absence of darkness, but the harmony between light and shadow. You begin to see that life was never asking you to be perfect. It was asking you to be complete, to feel deeply, to fail honestly, to rise slowly, to live as someone who no longer runs from themselves. When you integrate the shadow, you stop seeking peace as a place to arrive. You understand it as a state of relationship with yourself, with the world, with the unknown. You are no longer fragmented. You are no longer pretending. And that changes everything. You forgive the people who hurt you, not because they deserve it, but because you do. You release the bitterness, not because the past vanishes, but because you no longer need to carry it. You no longer demand life to be painless. You allow it to be real. The more you accept what you are, the less you fear what you feel. And from that acceptance, a subtle power arises, a kind of sacred calm that doesn't come from control, but from surrender. The Stoics called it ataraxia, the peace that remains when nothing else does. Jung called it individuation, the birth of the whole self. You might simply call it coming home. You start to notice light in strange places, in the laughter that follows tears, in the crack of a voice saying, "I'm not okay, but I'm trying." In the small act of someone choosing truth over comfort, you realize that the world doesn't need more perfection. It needs more honesty, more people willing to be seen as they are, flawed, beautiful, evolving, because the moment one soul stands in truth, it gives permission for others to do the same. This is the echo of healing, not a sound that ends, but one that ripples outward. Every time you choose awareness over avoidance, compassion over judgment, truth over illusion, you help the world become a little more whole. Carl Jung. Philosophy was never about theories or intellect. It was about the courage to live consciously, to look within and say, "This too is me." You are not the mask, you are not the wound. You are the space that holds both. So, sit with yourself, in the dark, in the quiet, in the truth. Let the shadows speak, let the heart listen, and watch slowly as the fragments begin to form a shape that feels like you again. No applause, no finale, just stillness and the steady rhythm of a soul finally in sync with itself. Because healing was never about becoming someone new. It was about remembering who you were before the world taught you to pretend. And in that remembering, in that return, you discover the quiet miracle that was waiting all along. You were never broken. You were only waiting to be seen. And now you are.